increasingly influent Indian population. There are some concerns about the green revolution, and the concerns are important to be addressed. For example, one, that it's focused only on cereals such as rice and wheat. It's based on inputs, fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation, energy, monoculture. There is a high food waste in India, perhaps as much as 30–40%. And there is environmental degradation, such as soil degradation, water exploitation, pollution of water and air, and of course, emission of greenhouse gases. In spite of all that plenty, the hunger and malnutrition, especially the undernutrition, have not been addressed. Indian soil degradation area can be as much as, depending on what estimate you take, 147 million hectare, and undernutrition in India is almost 200 million people in 2020, which is 14% of the entire population. So there are issues which are emerging as well, such as emission neutral agriculture, or what they call net zero agriculture, nature farming, drought flood syndrome, the One Health concept, restoring 26 million hectare of degraded land that our Honorable Prime Minister agreed with the UNCCD to be achieved by 2030, excessive and indiscriminate use of inputs, brick making, I will talk briefly about it, low water productivity, and of course, the emission of greenhouse gases from agriculture. And taking the last point first, enteric fermentation of methane, manure management, synthetic fertilizer use, and of course, the crop residue burning, especially, they all contribute tremendously to greenhouse gas emission. I think it's also important to address the zero budget agriculture. I had the honor to meet Honorable Prime Minister during his visit to US about a month ago or more. And he asked me specifically about the importance of zero budget agriculture. And my answer to Honorable Prime Minister was based on the law of return. And the law of return says that substance we take from nature must be returned to the place from which it was taken. So if you take nutrients away from soil and you don't put them back, do not expect the soil to continue producing. Soil is like a bank account. You cannot withdraw from a bank account more than what you put into it. This law, by the way, was made very popular in 1940 by Sir Albert Howard, who was then the president of India's Science Academy and was based in central India. The question of fertilizer, whether they are needed, I think fertilizer and pesticides are as important as medicine can be to humans. And with regard to the use of agricultural chemicals and other inputs, it's important to remember that the difference between the medicine and poison is the dose, time of application, and method of use. And if you are using indiscriminate use of chemicals, they are poison. If you use properly based on soil test and what's required by crops, it's a medicine. And we should use fertilizer and pesticide as medicine. Water productivity, I mentioned, is a very important factor. The idea is to produce more crop per drop. And the key strategy is the soil conservation, because soil is the best reservoir to store green or plant available water. Therefore, restoring soil health is essential to increasing water productivity and mitigating drought. There are 6 types of drought, and we must understand what those are. There's a meteorological drought, which is a long-term deficiency of precipitation. There's a hydrological drought, which leads to decline in water in rivers and reservoirs and aquifers. There's a pedological drought, reduction in soil water storage, agronomic drought, which is low available water capacity at critical stage of crop growth, and ecological drought, low water availability by land use conversion. And of course, there's a sociological drought, which is a demand of a community exceeding the supply. Therefore, understanding what kind of drought we are suffering is very critical. And types of drought can be there for meteorological, hydrological, agronomic, pedological, sociological, and diagnosis of those is very critical so that we can overcome this drought by changing water from blue to green, from gray and black, which means urban water use, back to green water, and that recycling through proper use is very critical. Of course, we must also understand virtual water. India being a food exporter nation, we of course export water, which is embedded in the food which is being exported. And understanding types of drought and what kind of water resources we have and managing them properly is very critical. In this connection, rice paddies are probably something that we can change with the aerobic rice or direct seeded rice. Yes, it's understandable that it may have less production, but then we are saving a lot of water and other precious resources, and that could be a very good substitute for producing with less water. Going back to Sanskrit, very Prasanna Upanishad's quotation, Kshati Jal Pavak Gagan Samira Panch Tattva Adam Sharira. The drought and floods are caused by land misuse and soil mismanagement. In fact, flood and drought happens consequently because the place where the land misuse creates flood, the same place few months after suffers from drought because the water was not stored in the soil. And therefore, this concept that the drought and floods are the two sides of the same coin. Once the drought happens because the water which was removed by floods was not stored in the soil, and they must be both addressed by proper land use. Another very strong component of Kshati Jal Pavak Gagan Samira is what we call One Health concept, and that means health of soil, plants, animal, human, environment, and the planet is one and indivisible. Therefore, in addition to socioeconomic factors, food security research must also address environmental and resource management issues. Urbanization in India is really something that we must address. For example, the population of major cities in India, New Delhi, increased from 1.2 million in 1950 and will be almost 30 million by 2025 and 36 million by 2030, increasing by a factor of 30. Calcutta increasing by a factor of 4.2, Bombay by 9.3, Pune by 10, Hyderabad by 11.6, Bangalore by 21.1, Chennai by 9.9. Therefore, we must address several issues in relation to urbanization. Brick making is one. India has brick kilns of 140,000 and increasing. Average land area under each brick kiln is almost 5 hectares. The growth rate is 2 to 5% per year. Land area affected by brick making is increasing, but the total number of bricks produced is almost 250 billion per year, and they are made from topsoil, the most precious and finite resource of the nation. And the soil organic carbon, which is concentrated there, the nutrient concentrated, they are all removed in a material for brick making and leading to emission of carbon dioxide and loss of the most fertile topsoil, as well as creating environmental issues. This needs to be addressed. Obviously, you need material to have construction of buildings and homes and rapid urbanization. But we need to be very careful what we take away from soil. And this, I think, is something takes about 40,000 hectares to provide accommodation and infrastructure to 1 million people. India's population increasing about 12 million, and it would require, on an annual basis, 500,000 hectares of land for urban expansion. And by 2025, India will have 7 cities, more than 10 million population, and a city of 10 million requires 6,000 tons of food per day. And some of the fresh produce have to be grown within the city limits by probably soil-less solutions, which means aquaculture, aquaponics, hydroponic, aeroponics, aerofarm, and remember recycling of the gray and black water that I talked to you a few slides ago. This approach is very important in India as well as in some other countries, and it will minimize also the problems of land grab and protect soil and ecosystem water resources, as well as reduce the so-called soil refugees. That brings me to the question of what is sustainable management of land for agriculture. The objective is to produce more from less. Less land, less water, less fertilizer and pesticide, less energy, and less emission of greenhouse gases. That is the science. We have been focusing on variety, which is very important, no question about that. But a good variety grown under bad conditions of soil cannot achieve its potential. We must have the base. Base is the natural resources, soil and water. And if they are not there, then the productivity of water, fertilizer, pesticide, soil health cannot be replaced by adding more fertilizer and more pesticides. And that's the idea of producing more from less. In this connection, soil health, soil organic matter content is the heart of soil health. And most soils of India have lost as much as 75% of their original soil organic carbon content. And some of these soils have organic matter content of less than 0.25%, while it should be somewhere between 2 to 3% in the root zone. And if the soil organic matter content is below the critical limit, the use efficiencies of fertilizer, tillage, energy, variety, everything depletes. And we cannot substitute the loss of organic matter by adding more fertilizers. Bridging the yield gap is also can only be achieved by improving soil health. For example, the wheat yield gap 0.9% per year to 1.9 requires improvement in soil health. So does the production of pulses and legumes. That brings me to the question of crop residue. Crop residue must be returned back to the land. So should be the animal dung and manure. They are the source of organic matter content. And there is no substitute for taking away the residue and not also bringing the animal dung back to the land. Then you are not being fair to the land. And the land rebels when it does not get its own share of productivity, which means grains for people, residue for the land. That equity has to be maintained. I did an experiment in Africa many years ago when I was working there, and this picture was taken in 1986, while the experiments of taking away the crop residue was began in 1972. So after 15 years of residue removal, the plot in the front received the same variety, same time of planting, date of planting, fertilizer, pesticide. Plot in the back, the residue is returned. The soil in the foreground is dead. It's non-responsive to input. Soil in the back produces excellent yield and excellent productivity. So biota is the bioengine of the soil, and biota requires food. food is the crop residue. If you take away the residue, the soil dies. And a dead soil cannot produce goods and services that we need. Many parts of India, there is no residue. Drier climate, Rajasthan is a very good example. Sometimes the gravel mulch can be also very useful to conserve soil and water. Here's an example of gravel mulch for sunflower in drier part of China, and even crops such as wheat can be grown under those conditions. I'm told that the productivity and the quality of the melons produced under gravel mulch is higher quality. So there are various ways and means to conserve drop wherever it falls so that the productivity of water can be improved. Biodegradable plastic sheet, biodegradable, not the regular plastic. Biodegradable, it means it will degrade over time, just like anything else from plant product, is another possibility. That brings me to the question of farming carbon. Farming carbon is the same thing as farming wheat or farming cotton or farming sugarcane or farming fruits. So farming carbon means making carbon in soil grow from which farmers can get income as well. It's a produce. So growing carbon is a produce, a commodity that can be traded, bought and sold, and get farmers income from it. And how much income? I think it should be about 5,000 rupees per acre per year, per credit. When you're increasing carbon in soil, one credit means 1 ton of CO2. That's approximately the price of carbon for ecosystem services. And this will also make agriculture a part of the solution to improve the environment. Agriculture in India has been a great success in producing food, but the environment have not. We have a wasteland, it's a 90 million hectare, and the lower Shivalik hills, all the way from Kashmir to Tripura, are completely denuded, and afforestation of the Shivalik hills and restoration of degraded soil would lead to recarbonization of the biosphere. And that's growing carbon. Carbon grown in vegetation, the trees and shrubs and woodland, and carbon grown in soil, both organic and inorganic, could be a commodity from which farmers get an income. And I was hoping to talk to the minister, which I obviously did not have an opportunity. But at the same time, India should pay attention to the environment. This is Yamuna, just outside of Delhi, and the pollution of the water. And if the water pollution can be controlled, as was the case during the COVID period, the same site picture, compare the two sites, can be like this. The beautiful building of India Gate can be like this, should be like this. The beautiful Ganges with a lot of biodiversity, with dolphins coming back because of improving the quality of the water, everything can happen. Therefore, we need policies which restore soil health through policies created by government, which are pro-agriculture, pro-nature, and pro-farmer. One more time, the varieties alone cannot solve that problem. So natural resources, soil, water, air go together. And the policies are soil health, soil-centric program. Vanita mentioned that's my focus of my research, which has been for the last 50 years or so. We need a conservation agriculture package. We need integrated nutrient and water management package through drip sub-irrigation rather than flood or sprinkler irrigation. We need restoring wastelands, which are many of them. And of course, we need to grow aerobic and direct seeded rice rather than puddled rice. And for this, we need policies, government paying farmer for ecosystem services, such as I said, carbon farming. We should have a 5-year State of India soil health plan. Hopefully, we can begin in 2025 as a baseline report, and subsequently, every 5 years, we get a State of India's Soil Health Report on a very scientific basis. That brings me to the last few slides of do's and don'ts of agriculture in India. First, do's: adopting conservation agriculture. I showed you the picture. No-till farming, crop residue, no burning, recycling of crop residue, providing clean cooking fuel to rural community, protecting prime agricultural land against urbanization, planting trees on hill land, including Shivalik Hills I mentioned, revising curricula at school level, including kindergarten school, where our alphabet books, ka kha ga, should be environmental oriented. Payment to farmers for carbon farming, I mentioned $5,000, encouraging religious organization to preach land ethics and protection of soil and nature in temples, mosques, gurdwaras, everywhere. Increasing dialogue with policymakers on the issue that I talked about, and of course, involving communities and panchayats in soil restoration. Dharti Mata, that's the concept where the religious organization could really play a very important role. Some don'ts: in-field burning of crop residue must stop immediately. Flood-based irrigation is very obsolete. Stop it. Removing topsoil for brick making. I'm sure India can find better ways to produce material for construction. Broadcasting fertilizer in standing water, it must be stopped. Puddling rice is not needed. Traditional fuels must be replaced by modern fuel. Uncontrolled grazing, where everybody's cattle go everywhere, must stop. Storage of grains in the open under plastic cover. Whenever I went to my place in the lower part of Haryana, going from Delhi to see grain stored under plastic sheet, and some of the rotten grains that you can't even go nearby them, that must stop because it's a crime against nature. And the subsidies for flood irrigation and nitrogen fertilizer must be replaced by payment for ecosystem services. Farmers who do good services should be rewarded. And use of crop residue for other uses must stop because the residue is food for soil. I think those are some of the examples of do's and don'ts. And I think one example that I'd like to suggest, it doesn't mean what I'm saying must be done, but this is an example. Irrigated area right now, we have 70 million hectare, and we use 200 kilometer cube of water. Over time, irrigated area can increase, but the amount of water used decreased by better irrigation method, such as drip fertigation. Fertilizer use, we use now 30 million tons. By improving the efficiency of fertilizer so that we can save losses, its amount used over time should decrease to almost half by 2100. In-field burning of residue is now about 100 million tons, but 2030 must be zero. Pesticide use, we have 56 million tons. If soil health is improved, pesticide use over time can be decreased to as much as 1/6 of what we use now. Cereal yield, which is now average for the nation, just over 2 tons, should be doubled by the end of this century. And the post-harvest losses, which are about 34 to 40%, no more than 5%. Some losses are unavoidable, but as much as 40% is not acceptable. And organic manure, we use 200 million ton now. By the end of this century, it must be 500 million ton because soil health needs to be improved. This will reduce the use of chemical by improving the soil health and by improving the efficiency. This is an example of the planning that we need to do. Something of this nature. And finally, we must have a slogan. And the slogan is the healthy soil equal to healthy diet, equal to healthy people, equal to healthy ecosystem, equal to healthy planet. Thank you so much. I'll be glad to answer some questions.
Thank you, sir, for a very enlightening and riveting session. And the floor is open. You may ask questions to sir. You can directly address Dr. Rattan Lal. He will be very glad to answer your questions. So please use this opportunity. We rarely get celebrated scientists like him to join us. So please use this opportunity. Sir, actually, I would like to ask you a question, sir, because you mentioned about zero budget farming, and there is a lot of stress right now on natural farming. So, according to your view, is natural farming good? I mean, in the sense of securing food security to the people of the world, or what is your view on this?
Well, I mentioned, actually, Prime Minister Modi ji, he asked me the same question. And the answer at that time and now is that whatever we take from soil, we have to replace it. And it does not mean it has to be replaced only by chemical fertilizer, biofertilizer, biological nitrogen fixation, returning crop residue, returning manure back on the land, by any means. But to expect that we can only grow things without returning back, that is scientifically not possible. So if natural farming means that we are returning nutrients removed by adding natural material like crop residue or compost or manure, things of this nature, as long as that balance is maintained, it can work. But if you're going to take away everything from land, crop residue to feed the cattle and dung to use for other purposes, and nothing is replaced, do not expect soil to continue producing. Both the quality and quantity of food produced cannot be maintained without returning whatever is removed. That's the basic. So if the natural farming can do that and yet produce enough food for the growing population and increasingly affluent population, then it's fine. But if that cannot be, I have seen some plots of natural farming, more weed than crop. That cannot be acceptable. So I have nothing against the concept, but I support science.
Thank you, sir. So please ask questions.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, madam. I am Kishore. I basically work as the academic officer of Imperial School of Agribusiness. My question to sir is, sir, there are a lot of cases like we can go for this organic or natural farming, or say the chemical fertilizer use of farming. But the major problem is in storage. The warehousing or storage of vegetables, and because of the perishability nature of the vegetables, the wastage is much higher in India. That is a major problem, sir. How that can be addressed, sir?
You are very right. I had few slides on the wastage, 30 to 40% for grains. And I have seen that myself. I come from a farming community. And anytime I go to Haryana, going through Delhi and going to the countryside, I see the wastage of grains. I hope it's decreasing. But there is certainly no reason to keep producing more and wasting more. I do agree with that concept, especially wastage of fresh produced fruits and vegetables during the season, lack of storage, lack of value addition, lack of processing, that must be paid attention to. But at the same time, if natural farming reduces productivity and it reduces quality of the food, especially micronutrients, which are 17 of them, and if they are not returned back to the soil, then not only hunger, but malnutrition, macronutrient deficiency, sometimes called MIND, nutrient deficiency in food. That is a serious problem, and we know it's a problem, especially among nursing mothers and children below 5. So it's really a question of balance, and if we can balance whatever the plant required to produce healthy food, and it's a healthy mean nutrient, the micronutrient and protein, everything is of good quality, and the food is safe and nutrition, that's fine. But if those techniques lead to a reduction in yield, that means you have to expand the area under production. I would rather decrease the area under production. If that means reducing the quality of the food, then those things are not acceptable. I think it's a site-specific decision that the local extension, KVK Center and other people have to look and decide. But the basic concept is that return to the land what you take away from it. That must be respected.
Thank you, sir.
So anybody else, please come forward and interact with Rattan Lal, sir.
Well, it's late in the evening in India, I suppose, so maybe they want to.
Dr. MJ Khan has joined, sir.
Oh, yes.
Hi,
Yes.
Professor Rattan Lal.
Yes,
Good
sir.
morning.
Good morning. Good evening to you, sir, Dr. Khan.
No, I'm in Washington, D.C., so for me it is morning only.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you are in the US?
Yes. I told you, no, I'll be here. So
Yes.
actually
Right.
from the hotel, I am on way to some place.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for joining late.
No,
Let
that's
me
fine.
thank you for agreeing to deliver this talk. And I believe this little time for people in India from office to home or something. So I think number is less. I can see there's only 15.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
okay. My
we are,
classes have 10 to 15 students, so it's okay.
Wonderful. No, since we are from media, so we'll be able to magnify it.
Right.
So it has been recorded. I'm sure that my team will suitably edit it to make it little short or in many, split it into many small videos, and then circulate through all the media channels. So a very large database we have got. So this of late we have been doing. So whatever is the conference and the number of people joining or the Zoom meeting number of people joining, but we are able to deliver 2 million.
Sure.
So this, I think, we are missing meeting in person. So October, I'll be back to
Thank
US
you.
again.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. And if I can be of any use in the future, please do not hesitate. I'm a professor, and professors, giving our message talk, that's the nature of our profession. So I'm available anytime you think we can be of service.
Wonderful. So I think I'll be there at Des Moines, October 3rd week. So let me see if I can plan down to coming to your university this time to see you in person, or if you are coming to Des Moines.
You are attending the World Food Prize function?
Yes, I was there with Ambassador Queen last week. We spent quite some time together.
Yes.
So we have registered it yesterday only to be here again in October.
Right. Yeah, I may be there, not for the whole time, but perhaps 1 or 2 days.
So this Telangana government delegation, which comprised minister and the secretary, so they'll also be back in that summit. So we have confirmed to Mashal Hussain. She is now CEO of the foundation.
Yeah. Well, so, that may be a good place to have a meeting.
Yeah. Nice, Professor Lal. In case we are not able to meet at Des Moines in October, possibly I'll plan visiting your place this time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Visit with you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Miss.
Dr. Lal, I have a humble suggestion to make. Could you just send us the slide that you have prepared? We can prepare that into an article, and we can publish that in our next issue of the magazine. Besides, we'll be circulating this video as well. So like Dr. Khan said, we will be able to magnify the reach of it was a very good presentation and it should not kept
Okay.
under wraps. So please do share with us.
Okay.